The Commission, also known as the Five Families, is an alliance shared by the five mafia families of Liberty City. The Commission was founded in 1931 by Marco Centrella, Carlo Gambetti, Carmine Lupacella, Giacomo Ancelotti, and Mario Messina. The Commission was originally started to maintain peace around Liberty City, primarily in Algonquin, where the mafia families of Liberty City had fought violent wars in the 1920s to compete for the various underworld rackets. The Commission was initially planned and organized by legendary Pavano crime family boss, Marco the Typewriter Centrella, who had taken over the Pavano Syndicate in 1926 after the death of his boss, Johnny Pavano. Pavano was murdered in a Frankfurt Avenue barber shop by soldiers from another lower Algonquin gang, the Gambetti Syndicate of Denver Avenue. The Gambetti Syndicate was led by 35-year-old Carlo Gambetti, who had killed his boss and taken over his gang a year prior. Not long after Gambetti took over his gang on Denver Avenue, the Gambetti Syndicate would begin to feud with the Pavano Syndicate, which led to the 1926 killing of Johnny Pavano. As Marco the Typewriter Centrella succeeded Johnny Pavano, Centrella would in January of 1927 order gunmen to shoot up 4 of the top figures in the Gambetti Syndicate, including Carlo Gambetti, who lived in a 3-story compound on Denver Avenue. While Gambetti and one of his capos would survive, 2 of the Gambetti Syndicate's key figures would be killed, and Gambetti would be hospitalized for roughly a week with gunshot wounds. In the following weeks, 3 more high-ranking Gambetti figures would be killed in the neighborhood, and this period in 1927 would earn Centrella his famous nickname, Marco the Typewriter, as typewriter was a slang term for the Tommy gun that was used in these attacks. Following these attacks, both Marco the Typewriter and Carlo Gambetti would lay low, while their organizations would continue to grow in their respective territories. During this time, Marco the Typewriter would move to Sicily, and the Pavano family would be ran by the late Johnny Pavano's younger brother, Massimo the Hand Pavano. At this point, the Pavano-Gambetti War would remain relatively quiet, as the Carlo Gambetti Syndicate was now at war with the Giacomo Ancelotti Syndicate of Lower East Algonquin. At this point in the late 1920s, the Lower Algonquin neighborhood that was beginning to be known as Little Italy was an extremely violent and dangerous place with constant gunfire and murder. In summer of 1929, Marco the Typewriter Centrella would return to Frankfurt Avenue and would eventually regain his position as Don of the Pavano Syndicate. As Centrella returned, Carlo Gambetti and the Gambetti Syndicate began to plot his death. Then one morning in May of 1930, Marco Centrella and his driver would be hailed with gunfire while driving on Union Drive West. As Centrella's car received fire, Centrella's driver would crash. However, both Centrella and his driver would survive. Soon after this, Marco the Typewriter would arrange a sit-down with Carlo Gambetti. The typewriter knew that in order for his crime family to flourish, he had to restore peace in Lower Algonquin. In June of 1930, Marco Centrella would sit down with Carlo Gambetti in a warehouse in East Hook Broker, and Centrella and Gambetti would resolve their war and begin to form an alliance. Also during this time, Marco the Typewriter would form an official alliance with the Giacomo Ancelotti Syndicate of Lower East Algonquin, and the Gambettis and Ancelottis would form a peace agreement. Carlo Gambetti, who led a massive gang at Feldspar Street and Denver Avenue, was also on good standings with other crime groups around Liberty City, including the Carmine Lupacella Syndicate of Bohan and the Mario Messina Syndicate of Dukes. Eventually, in the early months of 1931, these 5 Italian crime syndicates would meet together and lay out ground rules in an attempt to avoid the violence of the 1920s. And with this, the 5 families would officially form the Commission. As years went on, this commission would grow increasingly strong and would serve as an essential means for Liberty City's mob leaders to meet in secrecy and maintain peace in the ever-turbulent streets of Liberty City.